Welcome to everybody here today. I'm Mark Gilfix. This is Michael Gilfix is here with me. What are we here to talk about? Well, the 2022 midterm elections, the outcomes as we know them today, as this presentation is happening just a day after the election. So there are still some results coming in, but I think we have a pretty good picture when it comes to estate and gift tax implications and estate planning implications. So we're here to talk about what this means for your estate plan, what you and your family need to know. And as we get started, this probably resonates. Do you just feel overwhelmed? Are you tired of the back and forth and all the politics? You just want to know how to take care of your family now that the election has happened. That's what we're here for. And needless to say, in 2022, politics have never been more challenging to predict. I think the midterms defied traditional expectations. Who knows how some of the last elections will turn out? We're still waiting on some results, but we're here to give you some key steps you can take and some implications of this based on what we already know. And I think we already have a pretty good idea where we're going to end up. And we want to make a key point here.
Yeah, let's really stress that we are nonpartisan. We're taking no sides on the political issues. We are messengers. We're looking at what's been going on. We're interpreting it where we think it's appropriate. We like to think of ourselves as highly educated speculators, that we don't know the future, but we have a sense of what the trends have been. We think we have a pretty good feel of what the likely outcomes over the next few years, the foreseeable future. So again, not choosing sides. We're not red, we're not blue, we're not pink, we're not purple. We're just neutral. We are planners. Our job is to help you plan. We want to make sure that your values are respected, that assets you've acquired over your lifetime are protected and preserved for your family. So that's the focus here. Agenda-wise, we're going to look at California, not everything, as we consistently indicate here. What's relevant to you as we look at planning, selected national election outcomes, impact of split control, which looks like it's going to be the case, and what planning strategies remain intact or should you be taking now that maybe you hesitated to take before, but now maybe it seems a little bit more urgent or a little bit more secure. So we're going to explore these three broad topics for you and with you.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of you know us here. Just a really quick intro. If you don't know us, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're new to connecting with us, we are part of Gilfix and the Poll Associates. We're very proud of our legacy, 40 years in California. We've served thousands of California families from San Diego all the way up to the northern reaches of the state. And our goal is to provide you with extraordinary return on investment, but most importantly, peace of mind, to feel like you're doing the right things for your family. That's what this is all about. And really, that's what this talk is about. What are the implications of what just happened as we look to the future? And what do you need to do for your family? So as we get started, Mike's going to talk about kind of a less serious, but maybe too serious topic, a question on everybody's mind. Will Bakersfield secede? This was actually part of the news.
Okay, so I'm cheating. Before I said that everything we're going to talk about is going to directly bear on your planning, okay, this doesn't, but we couldn't resist. The Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County, they said, the voters should weigh in on whether we should secede from the state of California. They say that the issue goes, as you see, to whether or not the county gets its fair share. That is really not the only issue there. There's a lot of forces at work in that community. Is it a sign of the times? Could there be more secession or sort of reactionary type responses? And I don't think this has any broad implications. And by the way, it can't happen. I mean, this would take 38 steps, virtually none of which are feasible. But this goes on. Who knows what's next in our state of California? Who knows? So a little insight on matters that do not pertain to your estate planning.
And now let's talk about, though, an issue that absolutely does have implications for the state of California. And that was, so we looked at all the initiatives, and really the only one that had significant economic impacts for families and for businesses in California that we really saw was Prop 30. And you may have read about this. It was a proposal to tax individuals who earn over $2 million a year, so ultra high earners. It's a very small percentage of Californians. There's going to be a 1.75% additional income tax on incomes over $2 million. And it was to fund some seemingly positive causes to support the electric vehicle network and to add more money to wildfire prevention, but it lost, and it wasn't even close. It lost, I think, by, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it looks like it's going to lose by over 10 percentage points, which I think is another sign of the times. Maybe California is finally pushing back against new taxes. In the last few elections, we saw a lot of new taxes added. We'll talk about Prop 19 in a minute. That was a huge tax increase, but there were also some ballot measures that increased taxes on high earners. And I think Gavin Newsom came out against this because I think there are concerns that in the last couple of years, especially post-COVID, a lot of businesses have fled California. Our income tax is the highest in America. So I think this might have been a sign that maybe voters are saying, hey, let's maybe preserve businesses and keep higher earners in the state, because the concern is, hey, you can raise taxes on people, but if a bunch more people leave, maybe we end up with less money at the end of the day. So, again, don't have a position on this, but it lost. And so what do we, Mike, do you have any thoughts about what we think maybe that means?
Well, I think our next slide here kind of makes the point that I personally do think, again, being really neutral politically, I don't think this is a one-off. I think this reflects a lot of voter sentiment. Taxes are high enough. So many of us feel that way. Who knows? But it does pertain, I believe, to some initiatives that we don't really see surfacing quite yet that would add something called an inheritance tax in California, that if a California resident inherits too much money, that would be taxed. So there's rumblings about trying to get this on a ballot or pass it in the legislature. I really think the outcome on Prop 30 is going to stall, if not eliminate that movement, at least for a decade or more. So, I think it's highly relevant, the size of the differential between the pro and the con votes. So, we do educated speculation. That's what we have here.
Yeah, now let's talk about something that wasn't on the ballot. That's very notable, that we talk about this a lot, but we think we already know so many families are not aware of this still, and it is our mission to educate people about this issue. Let's talk about Prop 19.
Right. So this was not on the ballot, and that's news. We'll get into what Prop 19 means in just a moment, but many folks were caught unaware. They didn't understand the impact of this proposition, which is in place here in California. There were efforts throughout the state of California to create another initiative to get it on the November ballot, the ballot we just had. They didn't get nearly enough signatures to get sort to eliminate Prop 19 from the California Constitution, which is where it is. So that's news. The fact that they couldn't get enough signatures, that it was not on the ballot, so there was nobody weighing in on it. So what does this mean for you? It means that Prop 19 is law. It results, we've done a separate webinar, as we say here, on our YouTube channel, Gilfix Law. We've done a couple of webinars on what Prop 19 means. Bottom line, upon your passing, if you have real property and you want your kids to be able to retain it, particularly the cabin in the mountains or the rental property, and your residents, dramatic property tax increases, sometimes to the point where it makes it untenable for your kids to be able to retain property, even though you want them to do it. We have worked very hard to come up with solutions on this, and Mark's going to illustrate here what this means and how working on this can be the best return on your investment if you take the steps that we can take to eliminate this property tax increase upon your passing.
Yeah, and again, if you want to learn more about this, go to the Gilfix Law YouTube channel. We have a few talks about this there if you want to go into details, but I just think it's important to revisit. This is a spreadsheet that I created about the difference of families who don't plan for Prop 19 versus families that do, because we have solutions so you can pass properties to the next generation without this massive increase. So this is just an example of it's a valuable home, $3.3 million fair market value with an assessed value of $300,000. So if you have a home in the coastal parts of California and you've had it for many decades, maybe your house isn't worth quite this much. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. This is illustrative, but if you had it a long time, your assessed value for property taxes is much lower than the fair market value. This just shows for a house in this price range what the difference can mean to your family if you take steps to plan versus what you don't, and the savings that you can achieve for future generations. This is when a house goes from parents to child or parents to nieces and nephews or anybody. in 1 year, taking steps to plan can save $33,000 over 5 or 10 years. It can be over $300,000 over 30 years. We're talking about over $1.35 million or $1.34 million in difference in property tax increases for families that plan with us versus families that don't. So we have solutions for Prop 19. If you have a valuable home in California that you've lived for a long time, or if you have any rental property, or again, that cabin, talk to us. We have solutions to prevent these massive increases. So just want to flag that. Prop 19, we have solutions. Talk to us if you have questions about that. So
and,
now,
and I'll just add that we don't think it's going away. It wasn't just a lack of effort on the part of those who tried to get this on the ballot. There are a lot of very powerful forces, lobbyists, et cetera, who like Prop 19 and they like this impact. Government employees, government employee unions, because there's a lot more money that's going to come into county government. Realtors paid to publicize Prop 19 because it's going to result in dramatic increases in the number of real property sales. So it isn't like just pure the opposition. It's a complicated topic. That's why we don't see it going away. We have to accept that it's here. We have to deal with it.
Well, and hope is not a strategy. Hoping for something to be overturned when you have $1 million on the line is not a very good strategy. And again, we're apolitical about this. We see some good benefits of Prop 19. We see some downside. We're frustrated there weren't certain carve-outs for certain types of families. Anyway, that's a different subject. You got to be aware of it. It's the law. Whether you like it or not, we can help. Let's go back to now. So that's the state. So Prop 30 failed. Prop 19 was not overturned. National election outcomes. We still don't know the final outcome. In fact, we probably won't know for another month or so because it looks like Georgia is going to a runoff. But what's clear is the best case for Republicans is they're going to have a razor thin majority. And the best case for Democrats is they will keep their majority in the Senate. It looks like Republicans are probably going to control the House as expected, but we obviously have a Democratic president. So the bottom line is we have a split government, whether it's 2 Democratic branches and 1 Republican or 2 Republican and 1 Democrat. We don't know exactly, but we know it's going to be split, almost certainly. So again, Congress looks like Congress or the House really is going to go Republican. The Senate still too close to call. We'll see. A lot may depend on Georgia. But it looks like neither party is going to be in a super strong position for 2024. If Republicans had dominated this, well, we could have probably said, well, in 2024, they could maybe expand on this, or they could even lose some seats and still hold 1 or 2 branches of government. Right now, it looks like it's going to remain super, super close, meaning it's very likely that in the future, it could remain split. We don't have a crystal ball. Obviously, a lot can change, but I think it's important then to understand, what does a split government mean? Mike, why don't we talk about estate and gift tax? That's the focus here. These are federal taxes, and these have huge implications for families.
Yeah, this really is huge. As we'll continually indicate, if either party controls all 3 branches, changes would happen in the estate tax. One party would probably increase the level of protection, one would probably decrease it. But if we have gridlock, which is what we think we're going to have, this isn't going to change. All right, so let's take a moment, look at the estate and gift tax rules and what it means for you. Now, this is the amount that you can die with and not have any estate taxes go to the government. The estate tax, remember, is a 40% tax. That is a stiff tax by any measure. Now, the current level of protection is over $12 million per person. It really approaches 25 million that a couple can pass along under current law. Now, the problem is that in 2026, the level of estate tax protection is cut basically in half. Then rather than an individual being able to pass along over 12 million, it'll be about 6.5 million. Now, for most of us, that is not an issue, but for a significant portion of the population, particularly those who own nice homes in the Bay Area, location, location, location. It might be a house that would be worth $300,000 in Ohio. Here, it might be worth $5 million. I mean, that's the reality that we have here. That's good. We always say it's good to have estate tax worries, but with this drop, it means that you're going to have much less protection. So you have to look at the value of your estate, assume some appreciation in the value. So your estate is going up in value while the level of protection is plummeting in 2026. So the election outcome, we believe, means that there's going to be no changes. There were some folks thinking, gee, maybe there'll be no legislation to extend the current very high levels of protection, but we don't think there's going to be any change. What that means is that the current legislation sunset, it ends, it terminates at the end of 2025. So it isn't going to be a new act of Congress to cut back the level of estate tax protection. That is the law, that on December 31, 2025, the level of protection goes way down. There would be an act of Congress needed to change it, and that's where we do not see that happening. Gridlock left and right, even the last couple of years, it's been crazy. And even if there is a majority in one party, in one of the two houses, seems to always be one or two senators or one or two or three members of the House who aren't going along with their parties to make it even more complicated. So into the future, unless we see the GOP or the Democrats controlling all three parties, we just don't see any changes. So plan on it. Assume that the level of protection is going to go down, that we're going to have to deal with this directly. It is an opportunity currently to shield a minimum of $24 million, if you're blessed and have that much, from gift and estate tax, pass it along to the next generation. By the way, typically and often in ways where you can still keep control, where you can still have an income stream. It's incredibly powerful what we can do to save literally millions of dollars.
Yeah, so the bottom line is gridlock means the current law. We have the image of the nice sunset here. In this case, the sunset isn't so actually nice if you have significant assets, because it's just all the tea leaves say it's gridlock is the most likely outcome. Things could change, but we have to plan for that. We'll certainly know more after 2024, but even then we might not know. So we have to plan for the fact that the estate tax and estate and gift tax exemption is going to drop massively in 2025, December 31st, 2025. But let's talk about some of the steps Mike alluded to. Well, there was talk last year that some of the sophisticated techniques we can use to reduce taxes might be banned, might go away. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, so here's where no news is good news. If we don't have enough momentum in Congress and with the president buying in to make significant changes in the estate tax rules and planning opportunities, it means nothing's going to change. Here are some of these. There's so many planning tools that we utilize to reduce or eliminate the estate tax. Many of you have my book, which we're going to reference in just a moment, where we identify so many of the tools that we can use. Family limited partnerships and discounting. Doesn't matter that you understand all these things at the moment. The point is, these are powerful techniques that let us save literally millions of dollars for families when we take appropriate planning steps. The fractional share discount, GRATs, GRITs, CRETs, all of these things that have been viable, powerful planning strategies. There was much discussion last year in particular about legislative approaches to banning or limiting the use of these tools and techniques. None of it went anywhere. Again, we're not going to have enough momentum. There's not going to be unanimity among the three houses. So we don't see any changes. So that means that all of these tools, this is for those of you who have my book, it's in chapter 10. Mark, let's take a look at the book, just so folks
can see. And by the way, if you have questions about this more, we did a webinar on this on the Gilfix Law channel, Estate Planning for High Net Worth Families, where we explored this in more detail. But yes, Michael Gilfix's book, Beat Estate Tax Forever, is available about this.
Yeah. And the book, by the way, in terms of planning strategies, it's up to date. We worried that there would be changes. Chapter 10, for those of you who have it, that's where I identify most of the planning techniques we use with examples. And I really thought I was going to have to hit this book hard and do a rewrite and say, these are the ones that we can't do anymore. None of that. They all remain viable, which is very good news for you if you have a larger taxable estate. So we're poised. It works. It's very effective, these tools and techniques.
Yeah, and so we help families of all backgrounds. We also help plenty of families who aren't even close to the estate tax exemption. And along those lines, what is another strategy that is absolutely still possible, that the midterms show us that this will absolutely still be possible for the next few years, if not longer? Family protection trust, generically known as dynasty trust. And this is something that you should create right away if you haven't yet. So what am I talking about here? Mom and dad have their living trust. Let's say you have two kids, son and daughter. You don't leave money to your son and daughter. You create a family protection trust for your son, a family protection trust for your daughter, and you would do it right away. You don't wait to do it later. And these trusts would receive your children's inheritance rather than your children directly, but creating them now gives us tools we can use as the estate tax law is likely to change. There's a lot of techniques and strategies where we would leverage these trusts ahead of time. So you want to create them now. Now, just to recap, why would you not leave assets to your kids but to family protection trusts? This is a recap for those of you who know us, but it's really important to understand how powerful these tools are. Leaving assets to your child in a trust. If your kid gets divorced, if you leave it to them directly and it's commingled, assets could be lost. If it's in a family protection trust, high level of protection against divorce, assets stay separate. If your child is sued, if they inherit assets directly, no protections. If they're in a family protection trust, there's a barrier. There's some protection against lawsuits. 3, when your child passes away, if they inherit it directly, everything they inherited is part of their taxable estate. It could get 40, 50% of it could be lost when they pass away to estate taxes when it goes to your grandkids. If it's in family protection trust, all or most of it can go to the next generation free of any estate tax exposure. That can save millions of dollars down the road. And you might think, well, this sounds great. I don't want to make things too complicated for my kid. Well, your child can immediately or eventually become the trustee of their own trust if they're responsible. If they're not, you can name other trustees, co-trustees, or other people to oversee it for them. So I think this was from a little while ago, but there's plenty in the media about dynasty trusts. Our version is family protection trusts. And it's pretty out there. You know, this is how wealthy people, wealthy can be a very relative term, protect from estate taxes and against creditors and things like that. In California, they last for about 100 years. And we believe they should not just be for the ultra wealthy, although if you all are high net worth, you absolutely should have them. But if you own a house in California, in the Bay Area, in Southern California, if you have an estate that's, you know, over $1 million, including the value of your home, it's justified. You should do these for your kids. So these are still allowed. We don't see any changes to banning these in the near term. You want to put them into place. Any thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, let's add that you are setting these trusts up for your kids. Your kids would inherit assets from you in the dynasty trust. The real ultimate beneficiaries, frankly, are your grandkids, because these trusts dramatically increase the likelihood that all the money you leave your kids is going to be there and it's going to grow without exposure to estate tax. So, you know, the money's there for the perfect grandkids. Aren't they perfect? The kids, but the grandkids. So yeah, that's why we call them dynasty. It keeps assets in the family for multiple generations. And before we talk about this, by the way, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to give us any contact information so we can reach out to you, you can use the Q&A function, right, Mark? Yeah, Q&A.
That's right.
So please do, and we can respond. Well, I think we'll have enough time to respond to some questions. So
just a couple questions at the end. Absolutely.
For sure. So what can you do to preserve your legacy, to preserve your life's work? Steps you should take. Even if you have a good plan in place, you should review it. Things change. There are alternative structures that can be utilized in your trust, and you may not be aware of the alternatives. There is the AB trust. There's the ABC trust. If one of you is not a citizen, there's the QDOT. There's many structures. Some appear more viable and more powerful than they have in the past because of changes in the law. We always want you to think about and revisit this question of who is your successor trustee. This is the person who's going to control your assets and really take care of you and your family if you become incapacitated. So many folks change the designation of the successor trustee. Life goes on. People become estranged. You'll learn somebody isn't responsible, on and on. Have you put the protections in place for your kids and the grandkids? Usually that's the dynasty trust. It might be a special needs trust if you have special needs issues in the family. But the point is to plan proactively, think about what you want done for the benefit of your family, and make sure that we put that in place. Property taxes, we've said it before, we're going to keep saying it. Prop 19 is a threat, a palpable threat to the ability of your kids and grandkids to keep your home and other real property in the family. So have you been educated about it? We're doing our best here. Our YouTube channel adds even more. If you are aware of it, have you talked with us to learn about the steps that you can take to preserve the low property taxes for your kids and grandkids? And we often integrate that, by the way, with planning steps to reduce estate tax exposure. All these tax issues, they fold together. They relate one to the other. So Mark, what's the barrier?
The barrier, yes. let's say the 3 Ds. So we want you to overcome this, the danger of delay and denial. We hear this all the time. Oh, my kids won't ever divorce. Well, check back in 5 or 10 years. I hope they don't. But divorces happen. Protect assets from divorce. I'll get to this later. I'll circle back. I'm too busy now. There is no benefit to waiting. You don't pay an annual fee to keep your estate plan going. You set it up and it's there. That's the beautiful thing about estate planning. You set it up once and it's there to serve your family for generations. You need to update it from time to time, but it's not like doing it sooner costs you more. If anything, it's going to get more expensive later. You have more issues. You might lose the chance to do it because you're not going to live forever. You know, it's always funny to me how many clients in meetings, they say, well, if I die, it's like, I hate to break it to you, but it's pretty certain. I mean, nobody's found a way to cheat that yet. If anybody figures it out, please let me know. I'd love to find the secrets to immortality, although I don't know if we'd actually want that even if we could. Different matter.
I think Jeff Bezos is working on it, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. And Larry Ellison, they're putting billions of dollars into it. Or I already have documents. I did an estate plan. That's enough. It's not. Even if you are not high net worth, I know we talked about families with, over $6 or $10 million. There are implications to your trust that even if you are well below that, the wrong trust structure could cost your family hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital gains taxes if you don't have the right structure. So you got to revisit the existing plan you have, make sure the right people are there, the right structure, or you feel, I don't want to deal with a lawyer. It'll be fine. If you don't deal with a lawyer now, your family's going to be dealing with a lot more lawyers later. So even if you don't like dealing with lawyers, set it up right now so your family can avoid litigation or conservatorships or the IRS and having to bring in a whole legal team later. So we, of course, would love to get the chance to work with you. If you're an existing client, call us. Let's get a time to revisit your plan. If you're not, join our client community. We've served thousands of families throughout California. We'd love to get the chance to review your existing plan and to help you build solutions or to help you set up a plan if you don't have one. In light of the elections, it's a good time to take a fresh look. We now have some more clarity as to the next few years. As we said, we don't think there are going to be major changes to estate tax laws. I think a lot of people were waiting to see. And now we see there's not going to be a huge change in government. That means the exemption is very likely to drop in the next couple of years. We got to plan accordingly. We need to make sure you're situated so your family doesn't face hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in exposure. We also know Prop 19 wasn't even on the ballot. That's going to be law the next few years at least, maybe longer, maybe forever. Do not wait. Don't risk over $1 million in property taxes by not taking action. So you can contact us at 650-493-8070. Go to our website, gilfix.com. If you want to fill in some information, gilfix.com/myneeds. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, follow us for more free educational content. But we just would love to get the chance to meet with you and serve you and your family. So let's go to some questions. We have a few, but Mike, why don't you start with those? And if you have other questions, feel free to enter them. And by the way, if you want us to reach out to you to set a meeting, you can enter your name and contact information in the Q&A function, and we will reach out to you if you'd like to set a meeting. But let's go to some questions.
Yeah, first is, we've kind of covered this, but it's the question of, as we look at our crystal ball, do we think Prop 19 will someday be repealed? First point is that Prop 19 is complicated. It has many, many elements. This property tax increase is only one of them. So simply educating folks about what it is and what it isn't is going to be very challenging. I don't think it's going to get repealed. Again, unions, government employees love it. Teachers unions love it. Realtors love it. And there's some good things in Prop 19. So there's a lot of forces at work that say this is here to stay and it's going to have a dramatic impact. So, as time moves along, more people are going to learn about this because they're going to experience the problem. The level of understanding is going to increase slightly, gradually, and in a number of years, we'll be dealing with it more directly and more often. The problem is, what if you should pass away or become incapacitated before you take these protective steps? We deal in reality, as we always say. We don't gloss over real life and the fact that life ends, and it has tax implications. So we think it's here to stay.
Absolutely. And I'm going to start, you can now see us a little bit more. Hello, everybody. Another question is, how do we work with families? And, how do we do business with people if you want to set a meeting with us? So when we do planning meetings, we're there to serve you. We're not there just to pitch you on our services. We hope you know enough about us that you've decided it's a good fit. And we bill hourly for our initial planning meetings. We're there to plan. We're there to set a plan. And from that meeting, depending on our recommendations, it's up to you to move forward with all of them, some of them, none of them. And we would give you flat fees for how we move forward. So you would know exactly what the cost would be to carry out our recommendations. If you have questions about if we're a fit for you, if you want to learn a little bit more about our firm, we're happy to chat with you for 15 minutes on an initial Zoom meeting or call just to get to know you and make sure that it's a good two-way fit. So contact us, Gilfix.com, 650-493-8070 if you'd like to set a meeting. We can't, this is all educational. This is not legal advice. A lot of this is predictions that we're not sure about any of this. No one can know. But again, I think what we went over here is the estate tax, more likely than not, is going to drop massively in about 3 years. And that could have massive implications. And as Mike made this point earlier, it's not just where you're at now, it's where you're going to be in 3 years. And right now, the economy is not in a great place. We typically move in cycles. And by 2024, 2025, we might be in another huge upcycle. So the value of your home could be significantly higher than it is today. Your home alone by itself could result in estate tax exposure, and it will result in a Prop 19 issue if you own a home and any rental property in California. So Prop 19, we hammer this, I know, but we have to be ready for that. So you got to plan.
So another one here is one notice about how to get our book. It's available from our office. If you're a client, it's free to you. Other than that, we charge, I think, $25. But the other question is my IRA and my life insurance part of my taxable estate? I thought it wasn't. It is. It is. So when you tally the value of your estate, include all the money in the retirement account, include the death benefit in your life insurance policy, unless it's in an irrevocable life insurance trust, unless you've done some sophisticated planning. You also really have to think about whether you could inherit something. We think multi-generationally. So for most folks, the estate is larger than you think when you just come up with a number off the top of your head.
And if you expect that you might inherit in the next few years and you're worried about that, because that's all part of your taxable estate, we've had many clients pay for their parents to set up family protection trusts for them. So their inheritance is not exposed to estate taxes when it goes from them to their children. So we have another webinar on the astounding power of multi-generational planning. Check out the Gilfix Law YouTube channel. It's starting to grow nicely. We're starting to push more and more content out there. We've talked about all these in different talks. So we want to think multi-generationally. We want to work with you. Ideally, bring your kids and your parents into the process when we can. And there's so much that we can achieve. So I think don't let the gridlock in Washington deter you from taking steps. Gridlock means that we're going to face some big issues. And if one party takes full control, maybe things will change. Certainly if Democrats take control of all three branches in the future, we might have more strict estate and gift taxes. But the bottom line is hope is not a strategy. Do not sit back and hope that the law changes in your favor. The steps that we take to plan, there's usually very little downside. Heads you win, tails you tie. So let's be ready to go. Let's take steps to protect our families and our assets. And let's make sure our plans are up to date, because as laws change in the future, you need to make sure that someone is there. What if you're sick? What if you can't make changes? You need to make sure the right people are empowered to make those changes on your and your family's behalf. So any final thoughts, Mike, before we wrap things up?
Well, just a special greeting to a number of our clients. Current clients are on the webinar, so just a special greeting to you all. Everybody's a potential client, of course, but we do have a relationship with you, so we like to give a special wave to you.
Absolutely. So check out we're going to do another webinar next week. Keep an eye on our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, gilfix.com, for more information about other webinars. But reach out to us. Let's set that meeting. It'll be a burden off your shoulders and it'll be a weight lifted when you take the fresh look at your estate plan or when you create that estate plan. So we'd love to get the chance to help you with that, but we hope you got something out of this. We'll see what happens with the last couple races yet to be decided, but we already know gridlock is a fact. And so let's deal with it. Let's take actions to protect our families. So thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Take care all. Bye-bye.